The fighting between Russia and Ukraine along the entire front line continues unabated. A total of 73 clashes took place on the front line in the past day. According to reports, the majority of these attacks took place in the Krakow and Pokrovsk regions. Recently, the Russians have been attacking these two regions the most and have concentrated their forces there. On the Kupiansk front, Russian forces, backed by air support, have launched a total of 5 attacks on Ukrainian forces. 3 clashes are still ongoing, but it is reported that there is no weakness in the defense line of Ukrainian soldiers. On the Kharkiv front, the Russians launched a total of 8 attacks, 3 of which are still ongoing. According to the information coming from the front, the situation is under the control of Ukrainian forces. On the Siversk front, Ukrainian forces managed to repel a total of 5 Russian attacks. On the Liman front, Russian forces launched a total of 7 attacks. 4 battles are ongoing, and Russian forces were defeated in 3 battles. On the Toretsk front, Russian forces organized a total of 10 attacks. Ukrainian forces successfully repelled all 10 attacks. On the Kramatorsk front, the Russian invaders launched 4 attacks, often with the support of the Air Force. A total of 15 attacks took place on the Pokrovsk front. Ukrainian forces successfully repelled 6 attacks, but 9 attacks are still ongoing. On the Krakow front, Russian forces launched a total of 12 attacks. Ukrainian troops repelled 6 attacks, while 6 attacks are still ongoing. In desperation, the Russians continue to attack Ukrainian forces with all their means at their disposal. However, no matter what Russian forces do, they cannot break through the defense lines of Ukrainian soldiers who are determined to protect their country. According to reports, Ukrainian paratroopers managed to repel a Russian attack in the Avdiivka region. The attacking Russian soldiers were using motorized scooters. Just after sunrise, Russian forces attacked the positions of a unit of the 71st Ranger Brigade of the Ukrainian Army. The Russian soldiers set off on 2 MTLBs, each with 4 to 5 assault vehicles, but they failed to reach their target positions. This is because they were detected by FPV drones and destroyed by drone strikes. About a dozen Russian soldiers lost their lives as a result of the attack. In more than 2 years since the beginning of the occupation, the Russian military has lost 563,640 soldiers. It is thought that Russia and Putin's government, which has lost this number of soldiers in such a short period of time and spent billions of dollars in resources, will be subjected to strong opposition within its own country. Russian forces have occupied Crimea for a long time, but they are not resting easy. Ukrainian forces regularly launch attacks on troops and facilities on the peninsula. In this way, they not only damage Russian troops and equipment in the region, but also gain the psychological upper hand. The other day, Russian troops organized an exercise to protect Lake Donuzlov in Crimea. However, Ukrainian forces, who received intelligence about the exercise, prevented it from taking place by using unmanned aerial vehicles. According to reports, the troops assigned to protect the lake were unable to protect even their own bases from Ukrainian attacks. Ukrainian forces used unmanned aerial and naval vehicles in this attack and heavily damaged the Russian Coast Guard base, which was the target of the attack. According to reports, the attack destroyed the Russian ammunition and equipment depot, control center and Russian headquarters, Russian technical facilities, power substation and enemy firing positions. According to sources in the Ukrainian Security Service, the only thing the Russian forces in Crimea can take from Ukraine is death. The attack on the base was a joint operation of the Ukrainian Security Service and the Ukrainian Naval Forces. The Ukrainian Army continues to neutralize Russian attacks with air defense systems and long-range cruise missiles. Like this video if you want the Ukrainian Army to completely end Russian air dominance. In 2024, the Russians significantly increased the number of drone attacks, but for Ukraine these drones only meant more debris. The Russians have also carried out a series of drone strikes in recent days, but they were unsuccessful. The Ukrainian military has condemned these strikes, but Russian attacks continue to damage many areas of Ukrainian territory and the civilian population. Ukraine, as well as the United States and other NATO members, say the Russians must urgently stop their attacks on civilian populated areas. Since the start of the war, the Ukrainian military has shot down 12,316 Russian drones. Ukrainian defense forces have been destroying Russian armored vehicles like toys since the beginning of the war. Before the news, please like the video if you want Ukraine to win the war. Although the Russians organize offensive operations with heavy and light armored vehicles, they are not successful. The Russians, who use a large number of armored combat vehicles together with infantry troops on the front line where intense clashes have recently taken place, continue to lose their armored vehicles. The Ukrainian army continues to destroy dozens of Russian armored vehicles every day. There are thousands of racks of Russian armored vehicles in some parts of the front line. The Russians continue to produce these armored vehicles, but the number of armored vehicles lost on the front line is higher than the number of production. The Ukrainian army has destroyed 15,902 Russian armored vehicles since the beginning of the war. The Russian army lost many high-ranking military personnel in offensive operations. These soldiers were very important for the Russian army and died on the front line. Now, just before we get to this important news, you can support Ukraine by liking the video. Russian leader Vladimir Putin's decision to invade Ukraine had very negative consequences for the Russian people, the Russian military, and the Russian economy. The Russian army was the most affected by the strong decision. In the process, the Russian army lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers and equipment. In addition to the loss of military personnel and equipment, the Russian economy was also negatively affected by the embargoes imposed by other countries. The main reason why Russia lost so many military personnel was the use of inexperienced Russian soldiers at the front. Inexperienced soldiers had little chance of surviving the harsh conditions at the front, which led to a large number of casualties. Since the beginning of the war, the Russian army has lost more than 560,000 military personnel. It is a matter of curiosity how Putin, who has lost so many soldiers by making wrong decisions, will continue the war. The Russian army has lost a total of 564,620 military personnel since the beginning of the war. Ukrainian army operations have completely disabled Russian helicopters. Like this video if you want the Russians to lose more attack helicopters. The fate of Russian helicopters is not much different from that of fighter jets and drones. The Ukrainian army is destroying all Russian air targets. The Russian Air Force is having little success against Ukraine's strong defenses. Ukraine's drones, long-range air defense systems and missiles give the Russian Air Force no chance. Russian pilots did not expect Ukraine to have so much support, long-range missiles and strong air defense systems. The Russians were forced to change their frontline operational strategy due to Ukraine's extensive and ever-changing offensive strategies. Changing situations forced the Russians to make more mistakes. As a result, Russia lost a large number of combat helicopters and pilots. Since the start of the war on February 24, 2022, the Russian army has lost more than 560,000 military personnel, 326 combat helicopters, and many important pilots.